I'm Wes Grove. I'm the COO of Husky Injection Molding, huge company that produces injection molding equipment for the plastics industry.
And I'm Amelia. I own Monothreads, which is a biodegradable clothing line, and I also help Winds and Waves with their sustainability mission.
I mean, it's pretty interesting. I think you should expand a little bit more.
Yeah. So the reason I started Monothreads was basically I was just looking for a more kind of fun apparel line. And then as I started doing more research about the textile industry and how bad this is and the plastic and all that, I just started diving deep and reading more about it, understanding more of the industry, and being married to you, knowing that you've coming from the plastic industry, you're gonna be the one responding all my questions. So yeah.
Well, I mean, it's been interesting because for me, it was like, we're traveling to outdoor retail. We're meeting all these brands. And 5 years ago, I mean, in the clothing industry, nobody was really talking about sustainability, right?
Right.
But I've seen it now in the clothing industry. Everybody's shifted over to how do I reuse my fabric? How do I use recycled nylon? Whatever it is.
Right.
And it's the same thing happening in the global plastics industry. Obviously, this discussion that is in the news, right, where you see the plastic in the ocean. This discussion has really driven the overall industry and brands to really think about how they're impacting the environment with what we're calling plastic waste, but what I think is plastic resource.
What I like about it, it was for me, I'm from Brazil, so there's not, it was hard for me to get to the source or to find the right information, even to decide what kind of fabric I was going to use. So me having you, as an American and knowing a lot about the plastic industry, also using you as a resource or try to help me for the best solution. I also think that I brought that consumer aspect, talking about sustainability as a consumer, as a business owner, and bringing you to that conversation. Do you think that kind of change anything on your daily day at Husky? Like me being the sustainability lady all day, wake up, coffee, first sip in the morning. Here's my sustainability question, which
well,
does
I certainly learned a lot because
never stop.
With the clothing thing, I had to learn just like you. But that was kind of fun to learn what's happening in the industry and how people are using different resin. Because obviously, a lot of clothing is made from resin.
Right.
I wouldn't say it necessarily changed that discussion. Necessarily changed something at Husky because we've been working on sustainability for 10 years, 15 years. We've had technology that you can take recycled material and make new products. I think what really changed was this discussion really got hot about 3-4 years ago with the movement around plastic waste. And you're hearing about banning plastic and all of a sudden, I think an industry that benefited quite a bit from their success because plastic, it is a good product to use in many applications. I mean, cell phones, cars, medical, beverage, protecting food. They benefited from that success that it was a good product, but we didn't necessarily think about how do you recapture that. Right. So this discussion is really driving in the industry a lot of change. I mean, you're seeing the heads of major brands coming out with sustainability pledges that you didn't have before. And what's exciting to me is I'm able to get involved in that from the inside and help to affect change.
I mean, this is a new conversation inside of Husky and in the industry about sustainability, right? But there was a lot of things that the way it was made, the way it was decided, it wasn't the best option for the environment. So I feel like it's a kind of a new conversation for everybody. And I mean, for Monothreads, when I started in 2015, it was a pretty quick decision, okay, this is so not good. I have to do something. Maybe because it's a small, it's a small company, you make changes in decisions. But becoming part of 1% for the planet, that's one thing that I'm like, okay, I got to pay something for making all this apparel line or becoming part of climate neutral. But even though we're trying to do as good as we can, do you feel like you got to make it up for what, the industry have been doing and, all the bad decisions that happen? Because at some point I thought, okay, I need to be so good because my husband is just pumping plastic out of that, machine. And
it's interesting because, obviously you and many of my friends are always asking me questions about plastic, right? Because it's looked at as kind of the evil empire almost. And here I work for a company that obviously produces equipment that's used in plastic for everything that we all use. You know, if you're a surfer, if you're a biker, if you're, plastic is everywhere. But I think I'm also an engineer. So when I look at a problem, I say, let me understand what is really happening here and what the solution is. What irritates me, and I've talked to you about this, is let's go ban plastic. Okay. That doesn't really solve the problem. That's just a political statement that people are making that I don't think.
But it's driving the conversation, right? So if you okay, let's understand now that plastic is actually the best material for us to use, then you're almost like you're going to start cooling down the conversation. And the conversation is driving, the industry to change. So yeah, the straw on the turtle nose, is a shocking image, but hey, everybody knows about that. So
well, you're driving the conversation being driven is right. And I think if we just jump back in our relationship and say, how do we reconcile this together? Because obviously you have a passion, I have a passion. We both want the same thing.
Right.
I don't want any waste in the environment. The people I work with don't want waste in the environment. The brands we support don't want waste in the environment. Right. Same as you. We're just looking at this in a different way, saying, hey, let's solve that problem. Let's not just make bans of a material, because the reason I don't think it solves the problem is at the end of the day, there's people on Earth and that population's continuing.
Okay, so let's not talk about doing, we're going to continue using plastic, right? But maybe that's not that's the extreme to say we're not going to use plastic anymore. But I think there are other things that we could also, you as in the leading industry for injection molding is to work with the companies and giving them maybe better options for the decisions that they want to, for the plastic that they want to use, for example, like the red color plastic that it's not going to be able to be recycled, or the machine doesn't recognize that color, right? So it's not just okay, let's stop with plastic. Husky won't be able to tell Coca-Cola to not use a plastic anymore, but maybe Husky will be in a good position to say, hey, there's a lot more better options, the color of the plastic.
I think that's what's happening.
So is Husky also helping their customers and in a way that to be a little bit more responsible with the products that they do, or?
I think that's what's happening. I think that's what this conversation is driving. I think when you talk about making something, right, which we need to make stuff. I think you need to land on, okay, we're going to continue to make things in the world. Then you need to use a material that's the right material for that. Now, there's tons of plastic out there. There's glass, there's metal, there's whatever. Regardless of whatever you're using, it has an impact on the environment. And I think what the conversation is driving is people are now thinking about, well, how does my selection of material that I'm using impact the environment? And oh, by the way, the population's growing and we're consuming more. We need to have a circular economy for everything. The exciting thing for me is when I look at the problem, yes, there are some plastics that are bad. And I think they're going to go away because, government regulation is going to make it difficult for some of those plastics to be used. But also, this whole movement in creating the circular economy is basically going to make plastic or metal or glass or whatever valuable. And whenever you make something valuable, entrepreneurs and innovators are going to create a business case out of it and solve that problem. So it's the same thing with the plastic piece, I think. And we're already doing that, right? This is not a pipe dream. This happens in many places in the world. People recapture plastic, people recycle red plastic, people recycle PET.
I don't know what's recyclable or not. You try to get that. I mean, I'm 44. I can barely see, my eyes just getting bad so quick. But you get transparent plastic and you try to see, is that a triangle that looks, there's a 1 inside? So we don't know what's recyclable or not. We don't know, even depending on the town that you are, their recycling works different, their composting works different. So it's just for us, consumer, to decide what's a good plastic or not. It's don't put that on our hand. It needs to come from the government.
Well, I think that's
tell
something
companies
that
hey, let's limit all those 200 type of plastic to narrow it down maybe to 5 that we know is recyclable. So this way, when I go shop for something, I know I'm buying a plastic, but that plastic, it's someone put a thought on that plastic that it's going to go back to be transformed to a new product. When I decided the biodegradable fabric for Monothreads was just because I thought, before I design anything, I need to know the end of my product, right? So recycled fishnet is great, but I thought, we're not recycling apparel. We're not recycling any textile. I mean, it's just so low that doesn't make any sense for me to use that kind of fabric. So I decided to go with the biodegradable.
I think that the industry obviously needs to do a better job of making it easier to create a circular economy.
Right? The circular economy. Yeah. Where's that? Yeah. Where's that going to go?
What's interesting to me is I've met brands that have taken that upon themselves to go recapture the same amount of product that they produce and reuse that. It exists. It's not a pipe dream. There are countries in the world, Germany, Denmark, other locations that are able to recapture greater than 95% of the material that they're putting out there. So this is not something that can't be done. I think what's keeping it from happening is simply that there hasn't been a consolidated effort from industry, consumer, brands, and everybody. And this discussion is really starting to drive that. So that's pretty exciting time. And that's why I like working at Husky, because I do believe that when you look at the total life cycle impact of product, of your packaging or whatever you're buying, I think that you're going to see that plastic is actually part of the circular solution. People may hate me for saying that,
something has to happen, right? We have like 10 years before we get more plastic in the ocean than fish anyway. So it's like the speed that things are happening, maybe not fast enough. Especially if you're working for,
Well, I'm not going to get into the speed of government, but I think what you're seeing right now is everybody in the chain is starting to take action, right? There are technologies that already exist to make this real. There's governments taking action across the world on mandating the amount of recycled plastic. There are programs, even here in the state of Vermont, like most recently with the bottle bill that just passed, to get redemption, redemption for the bottle to come to raise the price. So I think that there's a solution. I love that we're having the discussion, because without that discussion and people coming together and talking together and listening to each other's opinion, then we just stand on two sides of the river yelling at each other and not getting anything done.
Right.
To me, it's like, the solution's here, let's get on with it.
But I'm going to continue asking questions.
Yes, and you should.
I'm good at that.
You should continue asking questions. I think everybody that we meet asks me questions. And what makes me feel good and have hope is there are solutions here. This is not a pipe dream.
Okay, so let's talk about material. Okay, so you're saying like plastic is the product, the best product for, maybe you want to say why.
For certain applications.
Right, okay, but comparing to like aluminum or glass or, well, the other thing is like, okay, so if plastic is the best material and we're going to start thinking about circularity, using plastic, but there will be recapturing, do you feel like that will cool down for people that are trying to bring like the biomaterial or other materials that is...
No, I don't think so. I mean, companies are creating more capable materials. But when you look at a material, right, when you select a material as an engineer, you got to select a material that's going to perform the function. Okay. It's got to protect the product. It's got to last in transportation. It has to have a circularity. When you're using a material, you want to pick one that has the least impact on the environment, the highest degree of circularity, and primarily performs the function. If you think about a function of a package, it takes 100 times plus the energy to produce a piece of food as it does to create the package that it's in. You don't want to throw that package away and have it end up in the ocean or the landfill or whatever. Right. You want to create a circular economy for that. But you also don't want to not protect the food, which is being produced far away from where people are eating it in general. Most people live in urban areas. Because when that rots and becomes methane, it's a significant carbon footprint. So when you look at the total impact of a material, I think, you can't just look at this, hey, the plastic is bad, I had to produce this and it had an impact. It's the total life cycle of everything that it's doing. You're producing it, you're protecting a product, you're recapturing it, you're reusing it. When you look at that total chain, Yeah, absolutely.
I mean,
Plastic is one of the materials you're going to use.
How close are we to be able to recapture? And, how close are we? Because maybe that's like, yeah, that would be, the perfect dream that we would recapture, we'd use and all that. So if that's, I don't know how close we are to make that happen, maybe the other route will be ban plastics or at least,
Well, banning plastics, let's just go there for a second. When you say ban plastics, you just mean you're going to use a different material. Now, what if that material takes 3 times as much carbon footprint? It doesn't make any sense. That's where I'm going with this whole life cycle thing. And bans don't work. I mean, I don't know of any cases in history where a ban worked, where people were happy, where they're just like, yep, that's fine. I don't need to go to the convenience store and get a drink that I like. Or in other locations of the world where you don't have access to food or water and safe or health ways,
ban plastic for certain like unnecessary stuff. Maybe we keep plastic for something that is like. I would stop with the
ban and make it easier to recapture and reuse all materials. If you make it valuable, entrepreneurs and innovators will make a business case out of it and will solve this problem.
But
and
maybe
that's what's
people are
happening
using,
right now.
just taking advantage of the situation that there is no regulation, there is no nothing that prevent them to use the cheapest plastic, the worst plastic ever, to create new products and continue using that as an option. So everybody that now activists and everybody that's trying to ban plastic, even though maybe that's not like maybe it's not that it's never going to happen. Plastic's never going to be banned, but you would drive the conversation to make it better, right?
It drives a conversation, but it doesn't get you to where you want to be. You want to have a circular economy that gives you the least impact on the environment. If you're banning plastics, you want the least impact, then you got to ban the materials, the product. You got to ban the actual product that a plastic is around. And that's where I'm saying people are not going to do that. So if you pick another substrate that's not as good for that application, then you're just creating a larger carbon footprint. So for me, me, like I want to solve the problem as quickly as possible. We're talking about changing people's hearts and minds. That's what Sea Change is all about a little bit, is educating people so they can think more critically around the problem.
Yeah.
That's what I'm hoping to do. Is I'm not here proponing, let's make plastic for everything. Let's use every bad plastic in the world. There are some bad plastics. I think they're going to go away. But there are some great ones, even ones that go in your body. The stents, pacemakers. These are very good plastics, and they're not only great for health, but also sustainable plastic. PET you can keep recycling forever. You just got to go and capture it. You can't toss it in the ocean or into a landfill. So it's really around creating that circularity that I'm interested in, and that's where we're going to end up, is what I believe. So I would just like to cut out all of the change management with everybody in the discussion of, arguing with one another, and let's get to solving the real problem, which I believe is turning waste into resource.
Yeah, well, I like that. Turning garbage into product.
I'm telling you, people are going to make a lot of money out of this in the future. I think it's interesting that you and I mean, we've come a long way, right? In the beginning, we weren't really thinking about this. And now for the last 3 years, especially, we've been talking about it quite a bit. And I think it's interesting that obviously you have tons of questions.
Well, because I told you, if you don't do something about it, you're going to spend the rest of your life picking up water bottles.
But I told you, I want to be part of the solution. And I think where I'm at right now is absolutely part of the solution. And we need to get the broader group of people all working towards that goal. So what I'm excited about is we're not talking about developing a whole bunch of new stuff that doesn't exist today. It's really getting people to all move in the same direction. And I'm excited that I can talk to people like you or my friends. And it's not that I'm changing everybody's mind. That's not what my goal is. I'm just asking people to think critically. Do we really think we're going to ban product? Or should we use materials that are highly sustainable and figure out how do we get those back into the economy? Do not throw things, anything, plastic, metal, glass, copper, whatever it is,
right.
It's going to be reused.
Yeah, I get, this part, then we see the plastic in the ocean, all that. So the problem is like not the material that is in the ocean, but why is the plastic in the ocean?
Someone is neglecting their responsibility.
Right. So
it's pretty complicated.
Right. So it's like the problem is the plastic is going to the ocean. So this is the problem. If we could recapture that and turn it to you know,
If you make it
because
valuable,
like you're just relying on new resource and new resource and new resource and new resource. You know,
well, I don't think the world can actually handle that. You
Yeah.
know, you have, I'm going to give you my nerd numbers, 7.5 billion people on Earth today, 9.5 billion people on Earth in 2050, and they all want to live better. There's going to be more consumption. The Earth simply cannot handle that. So you have to
I
recapture.
hope they don't all start mountain biking.
I agree. I agree, but you have to recapture and put that material back in the economy.
Yeah.
You're simply not going to be able to cut down enough trees and
Right.
suck enough oil and get enough energy. Like, it's got to be reused
Right.
materials. More people are going to want cell phones. I don't think the whole world's going to be like, I don't need a cell phone. I don't need to package my food. I think it's all about the circular economy. If we're all moving in that direction together as one, we're just going to get there faster. So all of this kind of discussion on both sides that's not really productive, get everybody focused on the circular economy and let's solve the problem.
I'm not on your side yet. 100% on your side. What's
it going to take?
We're going to continue having good conversations. I'll continue asking questions, but I'm ready to listen to see. Yeah, I'm ready to listen.
I'll take it.
This is heavy. This is good conversation, but
it's heavy for a weekend. I'm ready to get out of here.
all right.
Let's go hit the trails.
Yeah, sounds good. Let's do it.